Alrighty, welcome back to Shut Up and Ball, the Week 6 picks against the spread pod, plus Week 6 starts and sits. I am Aaron. As per usual, I'm joined by Mr. John Harris. Are you ready to get into it, Mr. John? Get into these picks.
I am. This is not the most exciting week of matchups. I don't know how you feel about it, but I didn't see any matchups that really popped for me except for like one or two.
Yeah, it's not like last week where there was just so many, and also like so many good other games. That like my Green Bay Cincinnati game was pretty good. Heck, Detroit Minnesota. I didn't watch it, but if you watch the end, that looked like a pretty good game as well. So yeah, looks like maybe not exciting as last week, but we still got some games. Also bye weeks starting this week as well. So yeah, not gonna be picking as many games as we usually do. But anyways, before we get started, I'm going to update you on the season rankings between me and John. Last week, we entered the week tied. However, John went 6-10 last week, and I went 7-9. So now, by default, I have a one-game lead on John. But once again, we're basically almost at the third point of the season. I think there's 18 weeks now, right? Yeah, 18 weeks. There's only still by week. So yeah, now we're at week 6, and we'll get started with the picks. We already made our Thursday night picks in the previous podcast, which was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers favored by 6.5 at Philadelphia. Once again, if you don't know what spreads, kind of don't know what they are. Let's go quick recap. Tampa Bay has to win by 7 or more points to cover/win for us, cover the spread. Otherwise, Philly technically wins against the spread. John and I both picked Tampa Bay. So yeah, Tampa's got to win by 7 or more. And that game will be going on probably as we speak right now. So anyways, we're going to jump right into the London game, go over the pond over there, where the Miami Dolphins, they are favored by 3.5, technically at, air quotations, at Jacksonville. John, do you think Urban Meyer and the gang can get their first win here or at least cover?
I think they can. I don't feel super confident in this one because it's two bad teams, and so I didn't do this last year, but I think this year I'm kind of just starting to stick with the rule that in two bad teams, I'm gonna take the points on the underdog. I might be wrong on it. I don't know how to feel about Miami. I don't know how to feel about Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I think I felt like I was pretty clearly just going to go against them most games. And then the Cincinnati game happened. And even last week, I would say that obviously they got destroyed by the Titans, but they had some success. And I think if they continued in that success, mainly James Robinson in the second half, it could have been closer. So I think that the Jaguars, they're just starting to really rely on James Robinson. He's racking up a lot of yards, getting touchdowns, and I think that he can keep him in this one. Because I don't expect Trevor Lawrence in this passing attack to want to test Xavier Howard, Byron Jones in this secondary a lot on the day. So, yeah, I'm expecting Laviska Shenault, in the slot, and then maybe some James Robinson to keep this one close. I don't know who wins. Like I said, at this point, I'm really just taking the underdog when it comes to two bad teams.
Yeah, this is a tough one. As of right now, Thursdays, Tua's status still up in the air. This is a Miami team that's been just both sides of the ball not great, even on defense. But I'm going with Miami here to cover. I just think this is, if I'm Brian Flores, I think he's got to be pitching like this is our get right game. Let's take care of business here, get back on track, and win. And I think defensively, I think he's going to have some concepts that Trevor Lawrence hasn't seen. And I just think that Trevor Lawrence is going to have a few more turnovers. And even if it is Jacoby Brissett or Tua, the name of the game on their offense is just take care of the ball. We'll, matriculate kind of down the field. Maybe hope that Myles Gaskin can rip one, or maybe Jalen Waddle, even though Jalen Waddle really hasn't been able to do that, it feels like, the first few weeks. Regardless, and, they been getting Gesicki more involved as well back in the passing game. So here, it was a tough one, but I'm just going with Miami because of those reasons, and I just believe a little bit more in Brian Flores. I think, especially looking at their division in the AFC, I think he knows that this is a must-have game for them, and hopefully, the London travel doesn't affect them too much for my pick. So that's what I'm going with there. So going on to the next one here, my Green Bay Packers, they are favored by 4.5 going to Chicago. I'm sorry, it's a different game. Sorry, I was going to say my cousin would be at this game, but he's going to the other Chicago Green Bay game at Lambeau. Anyways, yeah, this one's at Chicago. And yeah, I mean, Bears, Justin Fields, I think he's at 2 straight wins going into this game, or at least he won last week. So, John, you going with the Bears and the underdogs, or you going with the Packers?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers always destroys Chicago. I mean, he does for most of the division, but Chicago specifically, I can't even remember the last time the Bears really put up a win. Like, what? Do you remember the last time the Bears beat y'all?
I want to say it had been when Jake Cutler was at quarterback. I think that was last time.
It's been a while,
and I'm not entirely confident in that either. I'm not sure if Jake Cutler got a win against us. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure there was someone like a win in there somewhere. Like, I guess maybe that one year Aaron Rodgers was hurt. Maybe they won, but when Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I don't remember the last time the Bears took a game off of Green Bay. So I'm going with the Packers here. Also, just main points. I think the Bears and the offensive game plan has been to keep Justin Fields in a position to succeed. That means he's not throwing a ton. He's not being forced into 30 plus passes a game. And he's not being forced into, bad situations when the run game is working. So I think that's what they're going to want to continue to do. But that doesn't bode well when you're facing an offense like Green Bay's who can score at will. Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, all three just killing it right now. I think the Packers are going to put up a lot of points, and I don't expect the Bears to be able to keep up. So, yeah, Green Bay.
All right. Last time the Packers lost to the Bears was December 16th, 2018. It's not too long ago.
Was that the year that Rodgers got hurt? When did he
played
get
in
hurt?
this game?
Okay.
Definitely. It was
still
I think
a while,
it was the second time. I think it was that year where it was week 1. Remember, Rodgers got hurt the first game, and we did win that game. But I think later on that year we lost to them because Jordan
came back with the knee in the second half,
and we just made the crazy comeback. But the second game they got us. Jordan Howard, had 60 yards and a tutty, and Mitch Trubisky actually had 2 touchdowns, only 8 incompletions. Rodgers had 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. It was not a great game.
That was the height of the Bears defense too. They were really good back then.
Yeah. So, but anyways, for me, obviously, I'm going with Green Bay. I don't think there is a doubt there. For anyone that knows me and just been listening, I don't. Even though this Bears defense has been really good, kind of like Pittsburgh, they've been the reason that they've been in games is the Bears defense. I just think it's Aaron. We saw last week, it's Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and I know Aaron Jones had a great week last week, but I expect Rodgers and Devontae to have a good week again. We saw. I'm not overly concerned with the Bears secondary. No one, Eddie Jackson's been okay the past few years, but after a good rookie year, he hasn't really been the same. And yeah, I just don't know how, especially if they double Devontae. I think that Green Bay's creative enough and Rodgers is good enough to find the other guys that are going to have their one-on-ones, or if not, just throw them open like the elite level quarterbacks like him can do. So, and on the flip side, Joe Barry's this defense has been better under Joe Barry. I have liked what I've seen. Devondre Campbell's been a nice surprise. I'm not going to sit here and say he's amazing, but he's been very good for us. So even without Jair, I think that we'll be able to handle the Bears passing attack. It's Matt Nagy. He hasn't been revolutionary the past few weeks. It's just been, we're going to run the ball, just will make a few plays, and our defense will keep us in the game. I just don't think I don't think that's enough against a guy like Aaron Rodgers, where your offense is going to have to make plays too to keep pace, like we saw with Joe Burrow last week, and even that wasn't enough. So, going with Green Bay with this one as well. But speaking of Cincinnati and Joe Burrow, they are favored by 3.5. The Cincinnati Bengals going to Detroit. They face Dan Campbell and the gang, fresh off another heartbreaker. I think I mentioned last pod, the Lions are the only team to lose twice in the same season to a 50-plus yard field goal as time expires. That's just heartbreaking stuff. So, John, do you think Dan the Man Campbell, do you think he can finally get his first win for the Lions this week?
I don't. I almost picked him to cover just because, maybe an Evan McPherson game-winning field goal knocks him out again. But ultimately, I just think that the Lions and their defense, their secondary, although their defense hasn't been terrible, their secondary is definitely their weakness right now, especially with the injuries that they've had. So I just don't know how they're going to be able to stop this passing attack that the Bengals have, which Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, even CJ Uzomah has been getting involved. So, yeah, I think the Bengals, they're going to have a good day here. I expect them to win by a touchdown or more. And then on the flip side, Detroit, you're not really ever sure what you're going to get out of them offensively. They seem like they can keep some of these games close, but those are typically low scoring affairs. And so I just don't really have a whole lot of faith in their ability to keep up with Joe Burrow.
I'm right with you. I mean, I think the Cincinnati you already hit the offense pretty well. I'm just gonna go on the other side. Cincinnati's defense. I think we saw last week. Devontae had 200 yards. I mean, they were a very good red zone defense. They forced us into a lot of field goals. One of the main reasons they stayed in the game. So I'm not saying the defense is great, but I think they're about average to above average. And obviously, like John mentioned, I think we're both very high on Cincinnati's offense, especially the passing attack against this poor secondary. So I'm sorry, Dan Campbell, but not this week, man. I mean, your team deserves it. You're the worst team in the league, but I don't think you're going to get your win this week, nor will you cover. So, all right, we both went Cincinnati there. Going on to this next game, however, the Indianapolis Colts at Indianapolis. They are favored by 10.5, hosting the Houston Texans. Texans almost beat the Patriots, but just fell apart at the end kind of there. So, John, do you think the Texans can at least keep it close again, or will the Colts keep rolling here?
I'm going to roll with Houston. I mean, this game it's given me thoughts back to when Buffalo was like the 16-point favorite and I took Houston and I was wrong. But I think the difference here is that Buffalo, although I didn't pick them, there's a lot more reason to understand Buffalo, they're a really amazing team. And Indianapolis, although they're talented, they're not doing very well this year. They're 1-4, and some of these games have been really close losses, like we just saw to Baltimore. But ultimately, I don't know if I trust the Colts overall team enough to say that they're going to cover a 10.5-point spread against anybody, even Houston. So I'm going to take the Texans here. I'm not super confident on it because last time I took the Texans in a big spread, they couldn't cover that. But it was Buffalo, so I'm rolling the dice here again, even though I said I wouldn't. And if the Colts prove me wrong, then maybe I got to stop picking Houston the rest of the year.
Yeah, I'm going with the Colts here. I think the Colts are just a more talented team. I think New England on both sides of the ball, and especially factoring in they had a tough loss, against Lamar in the game. I think that was Monday night, right? That game was Monday night.
Yeah.
I just think that, especially the offensive line, even though they didn't have Quentin Nelson last week, starting to kind of come together. We saw some of the run game last week. I think Wentz is finally starting to get a little bit comfortable, managing the game more, not trying to be a Superman or superhero every week. And the defense, although, kind of fell apart against Lamar in the passing game, the defense is solid too. And I think they're more talented than New England. Darius Leonard, DeForest Buckner. And yeah, they're not going to have to chase around Lamar for 4 quarters too. So it's going to be Davis Mills. And the only thing that does scare me is, their secondary obviously was taken advantage of last week by Lamar, Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. But really, I feel like all you have to worry about with the Texans is going to be Brandon Cooks. So I think that they'll be able to do that. So I'm going with Indianapolis to cover this big spread. But yeah, I'm not feeling great about it either. So that is that. We'll see how that one goes. Our first disagreement of the week. Now, going on to the next game here, the LA Rams. They are favored by 9.5. They are going to MetLife Stadium to play the New York Giants. John, you going with the Giants here to cover, or will the Rams cover the spread? Because I assume you both feel the Rams will win.
Yeah, Rams are going to win, and I'm going to take them to cover. The Giants, they just don't really have a whole lot going for them right now. I think the Rams are the more talented team. I think they have the better coaching staff. And I just don't know how the Giants are going to be able to respond to a lot of the big name players the Rams have. I think Aaron Donald's just going to be a force inside. Even if they send double teams his way, the interior of that Giants offensive line just doesn't really instill a lot of faith in me. It looks like, I'm not sure the status on their receivers with Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. So it might just be Kadarius Toney, and I think he can make plays, but there's only so much one guy can do. Daniel Jones, I think, is on track to play, but there's still
Yeah.
question marks. Saquon Barkley's not going to be there. There's just a lot of questions for this Giants offense, and I think that the Rams defense is going to be able to answer the call, pretty consistently throughout the day. So it's going to be a tough one, and I'm not even going to get into the other side of the ball with Matthew Stafford in that offense. I'm sure that you can touch on it because the Giants defense just really hasn't been able to do much this year. And they have had some injuries and stuff like that. But overall, the Giants just a lot worse of a team than the Rams. So I'm taking the Rams.
Yeah. The only thing that does scare me, I'll start on the offense, is, I feel like the Giants will be able to take away the run game of the Rams and maybe make them one dimensional, but still, I think they have injuries on defense too. I'm going LA to cover as well, mainly because of what you mentioned on that side of the ball. Even if Saquon it really hurts the Giants because then kind of one dimensional. No offense, not really worried about Devontae Booker, and then especially if all those guys are out, it's going to be Jalen Ramsey, probably on Kadarius Toney, and as good as Tony's been, it's something different when you go against Ramsey in your second, big NFL game, really. So, yeah, and I expect Matthew Stafford to get back on track. Him and Sean McVay didn't have the greatest week last week, and really just after the hot start, kind of simmered down a bit. And I imagine they'll go back into the lab and expand on their playbook and pull out some new stuff. And I heard Pro Football Talk, they were talking about maybe the fact that Deshaun Jackson, he's had some good games at MetLife, so maybe he has another good one here. Who knows? But by the way, I'm not starting him again. I think I dropped him in that one league. Listen, I took the one-time chance. I won, but I barely won, and I'm not taking that again. So, anyways, yeah, I'm going with the LA Rams here. If our friend, Tyrone sees this, sorry, Ron, I don't know the stats for Danny Dimes. I know Saquon. It's hard. If Saquon played, probably would pick the Giants to keep it close at home, but sorry, just not enough firepower to hang tough with these guys.
I will just add on your potential worry of the Giants being able to stop the run game. So far, I don't know if you've watched any Giants games yet. They've actually been one of the worst run defenses in the league. They've allowed the third most rushing yards in the NFL so far.
I think that is because that probably is a big reason because they lost, Dalvin Tomlinson, who was very good up there. So
and Blake Martinez got hurt, and so they've been dealing with a lot of change, and so. Also, they have played some good rushing attacks. I will give them some credit. Like they just played the Cowboys, who I think both Zeke and Tony Pollard are top 10 in rushing yards right now, which is kind of crazy. So they have played some good rushing attacks, so I'll give them credit there. So maybe they're not as bad as statistically they look, but they do have holes.
Yeah, so we'll see if the LA Rams can capitalize on that and cover for us. But now going to the next game. Kansas City Chiefs, they are favored by 6.5 coming off that loss on Sunday night. They are going to the Washington football team. And yeah, so John, I think this will be a high-scoring game. I'll elaborate in a second. But how do you feel about this game, and who do you think is going to win/cover?
I think it's going to be high-scoring as well. I think the Washington defense has been disappointing so far. I don't expect them to snap out of that against Kansas City. And I think this could be similar to the game against Philly, where Kansas City was just really efficient on a lot of their drives, scoring a lot of points when they get the ball. So I expect Kansas City to put up a lot of points. And on the flip side, defensively, Kansas City's not very good. So I think Washington can answer the call there too. So I think it could turn into a shootout. And if that's going to happen, I'm going to take KC every day just because I believe in their ability to score potentially every drive if they have to where Washington, I think, they could have a mistake or two that could be the reason that Kansas City covers.
Yeah, well, like I mentioned last episode, I'm going with Kansas City, but like I mentioned last episode, the three losses are to three really good, all 4-1, 4-1 teams.
All 4-1.
And they're all teams, like I mentioned, that kind of have it out for Kansas City in the past few years because they've lost to them. So, and regardless, I think Kansas City is going to wake up. I'm not saying they weren't woken up before, but I think now their backs are kind of against the wall with the Chargers 4-1 in division. Yeah, I'm sure Andy Reid's mentioned we got to turn it on now. We got to go 100% now because if we don't, we're probably going to end up playing the wild card game and have to play away every time. We're not going to have the advantage of playing at Arrowhead. And yeah, although Washington, like you mentioned, I expect them to march up and down the field on the Kansas City defense. I think at some point Kansas City's going to find a stop or two that they crucially need. I'm not sure Chris Jones will be playing. I would hope so, but if not, too, I think Steve Spagnuolo is gonna. He's always creative with his blitzes. I know it hasn't worked out well this year, but maybe they get a turnover this game. But regardless, I'm with you. I'm just very disappointed in Washington's defense as a whole, and I expect Kansas City to come out just firing on all cylinders. And I think, like we mentioned in the last podcast, just some unfortunate turnovers that killed some drives last game. Obviously the bad penalty too on Josh Allen that kept them one drive alive. In the third quarter, the roughing the passer didn't help Kansas City's case. But then, the two, like I mentioned, with the two picks, both off deflections, both landed basically in Buffalo Bill hands, and the fumble just unfortunate. So I'm not really hitting the panic button on Kansas City as well. So I'm going Kansas City to cover against the Washington football team also. So sorry, Mitch, but it's Kansas City. Can't do that. So now going on to the Carolinas, where we're going, where the Carolina Panthers are the underdogs. They are hosting the Minnesota Vikings. So the Vikings are favored by 1.5 at Carolina. John, who do you have here and why?
I'm going to take the Panthers. I'm a bit surprised at the underdogs here. I wonder if this is taking into account that it looks like McCaffrey is going to be back in this game.
Actually,
regardless,
as someone that owns him in one league, he did not practice today as of Thursday, which is concerning. So he might not play in this game.
Even if he's not, Chuba Hubbard has been serviceable. So I think that ultimately Carolina is going to be able to have some success in the run game here. And so I'm not, very comfortable taking Minnesota in what's basically a pick 'em. So I think at worst, Carolina covers, but I think they're probably going to win this one. Their defense has been really good. I'm not super confident in, the Vikings, and I like their offensive weapons, but I just Dalvin Cook has been questionable. I'm not sure if he's going to play. Madison has been, more than serviceable, been really good in the absence of that. But I think this Carolina defense is going to be better at taking away some of these Minnesota Vikings weapons than some of the recent teams that they played. And the Vikings have been squeaking by in some of these games against far less talented teams. So, yeah, I think Carolina bounces back here, especially after I don't want to say embarrassing, but a game they should have won. They ended up losing. I think they'll bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, last week had a block punt, had an interception basically like on the goal line or in the red zone that, late in the game that would have put it away. I'm going with Carolina as well. I think, Sam Darnold hasn't had his best games the past few weeks. But I expect him to adjust, him and Joe Brady to readjust, get back on track. And especially also the defense of Carolina have been really good, and I expect them to be a kind of all over Minnesota's rather simplistic kind of offense, especially their pass offense. So, I'm going with Carolina as well. That 1.5 point spread, we're basically picking who's winning. But yeah, knowing me, I'll probably be wrong, and Minnesota's going to eke one out like they have been. I don't know. But anyways, so that is that. We both went Carolina. Now going on to probably, like John mentioned, I think this probably will be one of the best games of the weekend. Baltimore Ravens at home, favored by 2.5, hosting the LA Chargers. Both teams kind of coming off big / exciting wins. So, John, who do you have here for this good matchup?
This was a tough one. It really was, because I think that this could be a really exciting game. I'm a bit surprised that this isn't the Sunday night game. I'm sure that the Pittsburgh Seattle game was picked prior to the season. Well,
I think it's too early for them to flex it out. I think so they can.
But I assume that the assumption when they had this game was Russell Wilson versus the vaunted Steelers defense, and Steelers are not as good as people expected them to be, although they are getting some momentum here. And Seattle unfortunately just lost Russell Wilson. Anyway, this other game, Baltimore versus LA. I'm going to take the Chargers here. I like what the Ravens are doing, but ultimately the Chargers and their style of defense, they are comfortable with teams running. And we saw that last week with the Browns. I even said, when it came to the start Kareem Hunt, and obviously Nick Chubb was a obvious choice to start, because the Chargers, they allow you to run the ball. They keep these safeties deep. They're not going to let you beat them over the top. And so I think that means that Hollywood Brown is not going to be able to have one of these games where he gets one of those deep touchdown catches that could swing momentum in the Ravens' favor. I think that means the Chargers are going to force Lamar into some passes that maybe he doesn't want to be throwing because they're just they're not allowing things over the top. They keep everything in front of him, and they're going to force him to play a really boring style of football and just simply run. And they have the speed and the athleticism, and I think just overall the scheme to deal with teams' run game, and that's what Brandon Staley does. So I'm going to go with the Chargers here because I think the Ravens, Baltimore Ravens style plays exactly into what the Chargers want you to do. And I think that Justin Herbert and that offense, they're going to put up a lot of points. And I don't know if the Ravens are going to be able to answer that call.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Chargers. I know this new coaching staff, but some of these guys have experience playing Lamar when they played him. I think the first year Lamar went to the playoffs, they played the Chargers, and Chargers ended up beating him. And although Lamar's improved and the Ravens have, pass games improved a little bit. Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Chargers will be kind of all over their pass concepts, and just they're kind of built, like you mentioned, for speed. I think they'll be able to contain Lamar, and unfortunately, because of the running back injuries, none of the running backs really scare you. I know Latavius Murray is solid, but he still doesn't seem to be fully integrated into their system. And then the flip side, I think people need to realize, like, the Ravens defense, because of Marcus Peters being gone, probably defense hasn't been as good. I mean, last week they were down in the hole pretty quickly, and it took Calais Campbell to make a big time stop and then a block punt, and he's been kind of hit or miss this season too. I just don't think that they'll be making as many of those game saving plays against the Chargers. Justin Herbert, he's been balling, and off the offense under Joe Lombardi has been looking pretty good as well. Very good balanced attack. So if they put Marlon Humphrey on Mike Williams and or Keenan Allen, the other one's open, and Jared Cook's been solid too, and Eckler's been kind of playing that Kamara-ish role. So I'm with you. I'm going with the Chargers here to win and cover. So, or actually the underdog. So, but I think that they'll win regardless as well. So that is what I'm going there. So that'll definitely be a fun game to watch. But kind of keep it on that side of the country. The Cleveland Browns, it's going to be at Cleveland. They are favored by 3.5, and they're going to be hosting the Arizona Cardinals. So kind of surprising that the undefeated Cardinals are not favored in this game. But John, who do you have here for this matchup?
I am going to take the Cleveland Browns. Like you said, it's probably a little surprising that the Cardinals are not favored here because they are undefeated. But I think what we saw out of the Niners last week was really interesting. What they did defensively, which did you get to watch much of this game?
A bit of it.
The Niners Cardinals game.
I had it on like my second screen, but that wasn't my main focus. But I watched a good part of it. Hello. Oh, we may have lost John. We'll be back.
Yeah, so what the Niners did last week against the Cardinals was really interesting because I think this is sort of the blueprint for how you have to contain Kyler Murray. As we talked about in our reactions, Kyler had 7 carries for 1 yard. And what they did is they took their defensive ends and they said, we're going to put you in a contain, but what we're going to do is we're going to send you really wide and as deep as possible, because when Kyler gets under pressure or he feels like the play is breaking down, if you notice, he never goes up into the pocket. He always tries to escape, and that's probably because he's a little shorter to see over these offensive linemen and defensive linemen. And so if you can get outside, you have space, you have time, and you can see everything because there's nothing really in front of you, so you can make a better decision. The Niners did not allow Kyler to do that. They forced him to step up into the pocket and then try to escape. And when you have athletic defensive ends like Nick Bosa, he can probably get off his block and then chase you upfield before you can really, get anything going. So I expect the Browns to have noticed that, take notes here, and with Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, they can absolutely do something similar. And even Takk McKinley, like they have athleticism at defensive end that's going to enable them to do a similar thing. If they don't do that, I'll be a little disappointed because this worked really well against Kyler Murray in this offense. They didn't allow him to make these plays on the outside. And so I'm expecting the Browns defensively, at least, to have success there because of what the Niners showed them last week. On the other side of the ball, I mean, the Cardinals, their defense hasn't been bad, but they also haven't been like elite. Like they've been probably above average. I don't really have, all the stats in front of me, so I can't, necessarily qualify that. But even just looking at, most of their games, they've been, I would say, above average. And the Browns on the other side, They're an elite run game. They're going to, have some play action passes that allow Baker Mayfield to get time, get space, and throw it deep. And I think that's absolutely what's going to work for them in this one. I think Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are going to do what they do. I don't expect the Cardinals and the style of defense with the multiple and all these crazy linebackers who are sort of combo safety linebackers. I don't think that's really going to bode well for them against a smash mouth sort of style that the Browns play, where it's, hey, we're bigger than you, we're stronger than you, we're going to run the ball, and you know exactly where it's going to go, and it's still going to work. I think the Cardinals absolutely they still have a solid run defense, but I don't think it's good enough to slow down the Browns.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think I look back especially to the Vikings-Cardinals game. Vikings should have won that game. Greg Joseph missed that field goal. But the Vikings scored 33 points in that defense, and it's a very similar system that the Browns are going to run. Kevin Stefanski came from Minnesota, and I think we can both agree that Cleveland's more talented than the Vikings, especially their O-line, and I think even running backs, like two good running backs is better than one good Dalvin Cook. So yeah, and then defensively, I think we could probably agree, probably Cleveland's a little better. So that's where I'm kind of basing that barometer off. And yeah, Cleveland, just to add to, Browns play the Seattle, cover 3 scheme, and like John mentioned, that's what San Francisco played. That's what they did last week. So I expect Cleveland, who runs the same scheme, look at what they did, maybe tinker with a few adjustments, but really kind of have the same plan of attack for this game as well. So I'm going with Cleveland to cover as well. Man, Arizona's been a pick that I have been hit or miss on. Like Arizona, I think I went back and looked, like when I pick them, it's like I get it wrong, and then when I pick against them, like they finally win. So hopefully I can finally get on track and get a pulse on them this week, but we'll see. But I'm going with Cleveland as well with you. Sorry, Kyle, if you're seeing this. I feel like every past few weeks I've been picking against Arizona. It's just tough to be undefeated for so long, but we'll see. I mean, maybe Cliff Kingsbury will put the nail in the coffin of me saying, of us, and adjust to what they did. The Niners did last week, make some adjustment to what you were saying, and maybe we'll both be eating crow here next Tuesday. So we'll see. Excuse me. And then now going on to the next one here, divisional matchup: the Denver Broncos at Mile High, aka Denver. They are favored by 3.5, hosting the Las Vegas Raiders, who have been dealing with the John Gruden resigning, and such like that. So, John, do you think the Raiders can get it together and win, or at least cover this game, or do you think the Broncos will win and cover?
I have no logic behind my choice here. I'm gonna take the Raiders. I have no logic except for the fact that I don't know how to feel about the Denver Broncos. Obviously, once again, first 3 games, they won all 3. The opponents are really bad. The last 2 games, they've lost. I don't know if they've covered in either of those games. I don't think they have.
I'll take a look 1 second.
Regardless, yeah. So I just don't know how to feel about Denver. I also don't know how to feel about the Raiders. But I'm taking the Raiders here. I can't tell you why. I guess it's just a gut call.
So last 2 weeks they haven't covered. Granted, week 4 they were favored against Baltimore and they lost, so it didn't even matter. And then last week I just saw
it was the
Pittsburgh
Steelers
favored by 1.5, and Pittsburgh won, obviously, so they covered there. But I'm going with Denver here. I just think, besides of what I'm just talking about John Gruden as an offensive mind. I just think losing him is really gonna hurt this offense a bit. He always had a few ideas or plays that would mess with the defense, get some guys open. And and then also just on the flip side for Denver, I think they need to get back on track too. Like they're a desperate team as well after that hot start, and especially I think Teddy's going to want to. Stigmas are re-rising again that he's being a game manager. I think that they're going to want to get back. Go ahead. Yeah,
I was just going to say the check down Teddy stuff. He's actually like near the top of the league and average depth of target.
Yeah, he's been more aggressive this season, which is a big reason why they are where they are. I just expect Denver to take advantage of a Raider team that I don't want to say is in turmoil, but just been dealing with the extra. What do they always say? dealing with the distractions they've had, the past few days and such. So
Baggage.
I think distractions is the word I was looking for. So yeah, going with Denver here, but it's I could see it does scare me, the Las Vegas narrative that they band together. We're just going to win this one for us and the interim coach, and screw you Gruden or whatever. We don't need you. What I mean, just something like that, and they win. I don't know. That's always tough to gauge, is these emotional type games. So that's what I'm scared of. But I'm going with Denver, and if I lose by that, I lose by that. But now going on to and I like what they said on Pro Football Focus. They said this is the battle between two America's teams. Dallas favored by 3.5 going to New England. Foxborough, or surprisingly also heard New England winless at home this year so thus far. So John, are you going with your Cowboys or are you going with New England here for this one?
I'm going to keep it pretty simple. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. They've covered in 5 straight games. They're just looking really good. New England, I'm not sure defensively what they're going to throw at Dallas. You never know what you're going to get with Bill Belichick. But I think that Dak Prescott at this point in his career, I think he can handle whatever they do throw at him. I think they're going to throw out some creative play calls. I've been loving some of the stuff I've seen out of Kellen Moore. And so I think they're going to be ready for whatever the Patriots do give them. Even I don't know if you saw this. I thought this was really funny. Michael Irvin was talking about how Bill Belichick and the Patriots, what they do is they force opposing teams to play left-handed. He's basically just trying to say they're going to take away what you want to do. And Kellen Moore's response was, well, it's a good thing I'm left-handed. So I think the Cowboys are not super worried about this game, but at the same time, I don't think that they're taking it lightly. So I think they'll be ready. And like I said, they've covered 5 straight. And so I think I'm gonna ride them on this one.
All right. I'm going with Dallas. My main theory is kind of similar to yours. Their offense has everything. They can run the ball with either running back. You can, kind of do smash mouth with Zeke. Zeke can also bounce it outside, but also do that with Tony Pollard. They can, as we all know, they have the receivers. They can, spread them out and just attack you downfield. And then also they now have a mix of like the play action. Oh, we've been running the ball on you. Now we're just gonna hit you with the play action, hit CD or Amari deep, or even Dalton Schultz been having a good year too. So, yeah, I just think this Dallas offense is too good, has too many answers. Really, to New England, especially losing Gilmore, their secondary is not as scary as it has been. And once again, I think that team's still coming together on both sides of the ball. And I don't expect Mac Jones to have a terrible game, but once again, like I just. No one none of their skill position players really scare you at all. Like Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers. No, not really. Like Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith haven't been that great, and they're not like game-breaking tight ends anyway. And then the running backs. We all know New England running backs are kind of a dime a dozen. No offense to those guys, but that's just production-wise, numbers-wise, that's what they kind of treat them. So, yeah, I'm going with Dallas here as well to win and cover. So, unfortunately for New England, we both have them going. Another loss at home. So those Foxborough fans will not be happy. But yeah, now going to the Sunday night game that John had previously mentioned, which one is not as good as it could have been, which sucks. But anyways, Pittsburgh Steelers at home at Heinz Field. They are favored by 5.5, hosting the Seattle Seahawks. Gino Smith will be starting. John, do you believe in Gino, or are you going with Pittsburgh and Big Ben here?
I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I don't think that Seattle really has the defensive talent to, expose Pittsburgh's offensive line weakness and maybe even the lack of Juju Smith-Schuster. I think that Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson can have really big games against Seattle's defense. And then on the other side of the ball, Geno Smith versus the Steelers front seven. I don't have a lot of confidence, so I'm going to take the Steelers.
Yeah, I'm going Pittsburgh as well. Like you first mentioned, Seattle defense, they really can't stop anybody, really, and especially so that's that. And even if we saw Pittsburgh, I think we're seeing their offense kind of start to gel. They're starting to get their run game going. We saw it last week. Najee had a really good, efficient game, and then even though they lost Juju, I think this in a way helps. I think this helps Claypool and Deontay Johnson. Pittsburgh was doing this weird thing where they were kind of evenly spreading the opportunities out. But I think now, and I think that both these guys can handle the bigger workload of being, 1A and 1B, and especially against Seattle secondary, I imagine that they'll have a field day. And then on the flip side, even if Pete Carroll wants to do the typical head coach slash defensive head coach thing, where we're gonna run the ball, play time, a possession. Now that we lost our star quarterback, Pittsburgh's got a good run defense, got a good front four, and I just don't think that they'll be able to do that. And although I think Gino's one of the better backups in the league, he's a backup, and I just don't think that they'll be able to do enough offensively to win this game, especially once again against a very good Steelers defense as a whole. So, yeah, I expect. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of really good Sunday night games and Monday night games, but I don't expect this one to be as good. Maybe it'll be close, but regardless, I expect Pittsburgh to cover that 5.5 point spread and win. So I'm going with Pittsburgh as well, John. So lock us both in for that one. And then now going to the Monday nighter, last game of the week. My boy Blue Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, fresh off that great win at Kansas City. They are now favored by 5.5 going to Tennessee to face the Titans and Derrick Henry. John, who do you have here in this rematch of last year? Because remember, last year they played and Tennessee won by a pretty big margin.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Buffalo. Oop.
Camera went out. But
One moment.
I'll pause it 1 sec.
Yeah, I'm going Buffalo. I know that last year Tennessee had the answers, but Buffalo's just been really good so far. Their defense has been fantastic. I think right now they have the number 1 rated pass defense in the league. And so I don't know the status on Julio Jones. A.J. Brown should be playing, but
I think they both practiced today. I saw they both had some sort of, I'm not sure if it was full or limited, but they both practiced in some capacity.
Yeah. So, I mean, if they both play, that should help. But overall, I just don't really think that the Titans are going to be able to get a lot in the passing game going. And if they're going to have to run the ball all day, they could have success. But even Buffalo's run defense has been no slouch. And so I think that Buffalo has the answers defensively. And then on the other side of the ball, I don't see any reason why Josh Allen and that offense shouldn't continue to do what they do. And I think this could even be a Stephon Diggs, comeback game, if you want to call it, because he just really hasn't had, a Stephon Diggs sort of year so far. So yeah, I'm taking the Bills.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I'm taking Buffalo. I think as a front four, they're better too. Last year Tennessee was able to kind of do what they want on that side of the ball. I think this obviously is a viral clip of Derrick Henry stiff arming Josh Norman. I just think that this is a better Bills front seven, as I just mentioned. And then also on the flip side too, they kind of caught Buffalo early last year. It was also that weird, I think it's one of those weird Tuesday games too because of the COVID situation. But now I think Buffalo's a much better, much more polished offense, not just passing wise, but also run wise. So I think they have better balance there. So yeah, I expect Buffalo to definitely win this game. And I think that they'll cover. Just Tennessee's defense has been way too inconsistent for me, and I think Buffalo put them in a lot of binds. And although Derrick Henry is always scary to go against, I think Leslie Frazier, I almost said Todd. Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott, both defensive coaches. Obviously, Leslie's a defensive play caller / coordinator. I think that they'll have enough answers and ways to slow Derrick Henry while also being able to contain Julio and A.J. Brown. So that was a little bit tough one to pick, but still going Buffalo there for that matchup. So that is the picks for Week 6.